Explaining World War III. On April 1st, 2023, a man by the name of Joseph Lee Lichtenstein was born in Honduras. His family was quite poor and he never really had much. However, at the age of 27 in 2050, he raked up enough money to move to the small European country of Liechtenstein. There, he became a lawyer and quite influential within the country. However, at the same time, Joseph Lee Lichtenstein became very mentally ill and began believing he was the reincarnation of the first Mongol emperor, Genghis Khan. Most thought he was crazy. However, some actually believed this and began following him. With his new following, Joseph Lee Lichtenstein began planning for a coup d'etat against the Liechtensteinian monarchy. This coup d'etat went through on April 1st, 2051, and it was successful, with Joseph Lee Lichtenstein becoming the president of Liechtenstein. He began rapidly militarizing Liechtenstein, and the next year, he prepared for an invasion of Switzerland. The invasion went through, and although it was hard fought, the Swiss lost, with Liechtenstein coming out on top. Nobody expected this, as, after all, Liechtenstein was classified as a micronation, and was therefore not expected to be very powerful. Countries all across the world denounced Liechtenstein for this. However, nobody really did anything. Liechtenstein then began focusing its efforts on Austria. This invasion only lasted a week, and was met with barely any resistance. This time, nations began embargoing Liechtenstein. The last straw would be on April 1st, 2055, when Joseph Lee Lichtenstein decided to invade Italy. Italy was a country in NATO, and therefore when Liechtenstein attacked it, all other countries in NATO had to declare war on Liechtenstein. Despite meeting heavy resistance, Liechtenstein pushed on and was able to take Milan and Venice quite quickly. Liechtenstein continued to push south. However, their advance was temporarily halted when a German offensive in the north caused Joseph Liechtenstein to pull troops from the Italian border to the northern border. Despite this, the Liechtensteiners were still extremely effective in defeating the Italian army due to their large amounts of guerrilla warfare. Liechtenstein would eventually reach Rome and would begin to siege it. The Italians held off the Liechtensteiners for 3 months, which allowed the French and the Germans to launch multiple offensives against the Liechtensteiners. Rome would eventually fall, and not long after, almost all of Italy would fall under Liechtenstein's control. Joseph Liechtenstein would move Liechtenstein's capital to Rome, and Joseph Liechtenstein, the self-proclaimed reincarnation of Genghis Khan, would declare himself the new Roman emperor. From there, Liechtenstein began making diplomatic talks with other countries, such as Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia wished to make an Arab state, and they believed that, with Liechtenstein's help, they could do that. Saudi Arabia officially joined the Liechtensteiner war effort on April 1st, 2056. From there, Liechtenstein would launch an offensive into Germany, which would go very well for them. Liechtenstein was able to capture most of southern Germany, and to top it off, a coup d'etat in Germany happened that was in favor of Liechtenstein's war effort. The new German government withdrew their support from NATO and joined Liechtenstein and Saudi Arabia against NATO. Saudi Arabia took out both Yemen and Oman and began moving into Egypt. At this point, the United States began getting involved much more in the war and began sending over thousands of troops to stop Liechtenstein and Saudi Arabia. This, however, would not do much, as, with the help of Germany, Liechtenstein would invade France, and within just 2 months, the entire country would capitulate. Liechtenstein would set up a puppet state in France known as the Free State of Normandy, of which they would use to launch an attack on Britain. Quite frankly, the war was not going good for NATO, with most of their strongest powers, barring the United States, were taken out. However, a turning point in the war would come on April 1st, 2058, when talks between Taiwan and Liechtenstein would become public. Liechtenstein had offered to help Taiwan in an invasion of mainland China, as long as Taiwan joined Liechtenstein's war effort. This caused the People's Republic of China to get involved in the war against Liechtenstein. With two extremely powerful nuclear powers, both on the same side against Liechtenstein, Liechtenstein was in a lot of trouble. Joe Liechtenstein ordered nuclear bombs, which had previously been in ownership of France, to be launched at both the United States and China. This, quite frankly, was a terrible decision, as most of them were either shot down or landed away from their targets. With both the United States and China now knowing that Liechtenstein wished to start a nuclear war, they began using nuclear weapons as well. Important military bases and cities were bombed, and Saudi Arabia would not be spared either, as China would begin bombing them. It was the beginning of the end for Liechtenstein. Rebel groups across the empire began sprouting up and launching rebellions against Liechtenstein, while Germany faced another coup d'etat, this time against Liechtenstein. Saudi Arabia was also being pushed back on all fronts. On April 1st, 2059, Riyadh, the capital of Saudi Arabia, would be captured and the Saudi Arabian government would surrender. Only a year later, Joe Liechtenstein, while trying to flee his failing empire, would be captured by an Italian rebel group, and there, on April 1st, 2060, he would be executed. With Joe Liechtenstein's death, most people mark this as the end of World War III. In conclusion, World War III is a totally real war. It definitely happened, and I have not just made this up. Thank you for watching this video on World War III.